Hi, my name is Ryan Hart. I play for Team Western Wars and Team ManTan. So I'm from the United Kingdom. I'm here at Final Round for a good time. I'm really enjoying Final Round. It's been a nice experience for me. I mean, this is my first US major outside of Evo. So, you know, it's really good to come here and see how it is at the slightly, you know, at the different majors. And it's just nice to hang out with everyone, eat some American food and play some games, you know. The first fighting game I ever played was probably Street Smart, you know, very, very old game. And I then played Street Fighter 1 at some stage. But yeah, there were so many different games at the arcades back then. But yeah, I started playing when I was about, the first time I ever played a game I was about 10. And that was Golden Axe. And then that evolved into Shinobi, Double Dragon, those really old classics. And then at some stage Street Fighter 1 made an appearance at the arcade and we all started playing that. And I think I'd say games got serious in '94, I think, for me. In '94 I entered my first tournament. It was for Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo and we got blown up so badly. It was really hard to take. I mean, that experience, to be really honest, it kind of split our community in half, the community at the time, because when people went to that tournament, because, you know, we were good where we were from. We thought we were the best, you know. And when we went to that tournament and got battered, I mean, it was an eye-opener, you know. I wasn't even the best in my area. I was like the middle. I was average in my area. There were guys that I could never beat, and there were some guys that I could beat. So when we went to this tournament, I was so sure that even if I didn't do well, the guys who were the best in our area, they'll beat everyone. There's no way they won't win. And they got blown up as well, man. It was really depressing. We were all hyped on the way there, like, yeah, we're going to do this and that. And on the way back, we were just all depressed, you know. Some people were looking out the window. Some people were on their phones. Some people were looking down at the floor. Some man in the corner just like, why did I jump? You know, just like everyone had their story to tell, you know. And what that did is it kind of it gave us perspective, because half of the community were like, okay, you know what? I'm playing games for fun. Now that I've seen what I've seen today, it's too much for me and I'm out. I can't do this. Like, I didn't know it could be. I didn't know that that's what, you know, it evolves into. I didn't know that it was that deep. And for me, it's not ever going to be that serious. So I'm done. And they never really came arcades anymore. And then for other players, it was like the opposite. It was inspirational. It was like, wow, I didn't know you could do that combo. I didn't know that the level could be that high. I didn't know that there were players like that. I want some of that. That's me. I want that. And I mean, me being here today, I guess you can figure out that I was probably that half. I entered the King of Fighters 95 tournament. So I've always been a multi-game player. But yeah, I entered the King of Fighters 95 tournament and I got battered as well. I was actually really good, but I did nothing at the tournament. It was a winner stays on, kind of like a round robin style tournament. That's how we used to do it back then. And I got, I didn't come anywhere, but I beat the guy who would have won. So I beat someone who was way better than me. I guess he could say he got randomed out, because I was a random, you know, he got randomed out. But I beat him clean. It was a clean victory. I wasn't even on my last character on KOF. So, yeah, and then I lost. You know, I lost to whoever else after that. But that was my first kind of little piece of spotlight, you know, my little, 5 minutes of fame that I had that tournament. But it was very disappointing to lose still, because, you know, you think you've come somewhere and you go to a big tournament and you realize you've still got such a long way to go. It's hard to take that. But then the next tournament after that was Tekken 2 Nationals, and I came fourth. So I actually placed. You know, it's my first time to place in the tournament. It's my third tournament, and I came fourth. And the guys who came first, second, and third, they were actually better than me. So it was fine. I was really, really happy to come fourth, because I felt that was where I belonged to be. My next tournament after that was King of Fighters 96. So it was a year after the 95 one, and I won that tournament. It was my first tournament that I won in King of Fighters 96. I was 17, and I was really determined to win that. I played a guy from Japan in the grand finals, and I beat him 3-1 in the grand finals. And yeah, I don't know, it was a different, it changed gaming for me, I think, winning a tournament, because it now meant that I had like a reason to be good. Like, I had a reason to play. Not that I didn't before, but it's like, now it means something. Now it means more, you know, like, I'm the champion, you know, I've got something to defend, I've got something to lose, you know, that as well will put you into training, you know, because you don't want to lose. Then after that, in '98, I went to Japan. I qualified for a tournament on a game called Air Guides. It was a crossover between Squaresoft and Namco, back when it was called Squaresoft and Namco wasn't Namco Bandai. and yeah, the God Hand game. I played that, and I won the nationals in the UK. So I was invited to the World Finals in Japan. And as you guys said in America, I got bodied. Like, I got so badly blown up. But for me, to be really honest, like, I was new on that game. I was new on guys. I only won the tournament because I wanted to go to Japan. I didn't care about the tournament. To be honest, you know, it wasn't really a game that I even liked that much. It was just, what, a free trip to Japan? I'm there, you know, and I won a tournament. I went to Japan. But when I was in Japan, because of all my success in the UK, people in Japan already knew me. Like, people that had been to the UK for a year to study English, you know, went back to Japan and told people there about me in England, you know. So when I went to Japan in '98, everyone knew me. On all the Tekken scene knew me, all the virtual fighter scene knew me, all the Street Fighter scene, you know, like Alpha and stuff like that. They all knew who I was. And it was like, wow, this is really nice. And I won my first World Championship on King of Fighters '98 in Tokyo. And that tournament was held at Tokyo Game Show. And that was a really nice experience because I was the only foreign player. Everyone was from Japan. It was all Japanese. It was an all Japanese tournament. And they just said that I have a really different style. They hadn't seen a player that had the same style as me. So after that Air Guides tournament, when I went outside, there were lots of reporters out there waiting for me. They wanted to all interview me for Gamist, for Famitsu, you know, all the magazines. And one guy was an arcade owner, and he was like, you know, we've got this arcade called Playmax. You know, it's in Shinjuku. It's where everyone plays. You got to come down. So I went there that evening, and those guys are so nice. They actually set up the arcade, like they moved all the machines around so that every cabinet was lined up against the wall. So you had 2 walls of cabinets, and there was just one machine in the middle of the floor with 2 chairs, and everyone made a long line, and they made everyone stop playing the games that they were playing, and every single person in that Tekken section made a single file line, and they all played me one by one. So I just sat down and I just ran a Ryan Hart Kumite. Whether I won or I lost, I just stayed on. And it was, they did that service for me. Like, they were so happy to have an opportunity to play against me, and it was a really wow feeling. I felt privileged, you know. I couldn't believe that I'm there, and I didn't want to look bad, you know. I didn't want to just get bad by everyone. I would say it was about 60-40 in my favor, so I didn't get blown up. But yeah, you know, it was. But it was just one game though as well, so you might get battered and then he's done and you're like, what? I can't run it back, you know. So that was hard to accept sometimes. But then I just make sure I batter the next guy to make up for it. And yeah, that was cool. And then I got invited to some studios to help make the guide. They were making a combo guide and frame data guide for one of the Japanese MOOCs, and they wanted my input. And you know, I was just a teenager then, but it was like my first sort of like real insight into the industry, you know, like from a business perspective, like learning about what consumers need from a book and things like this. I didn't know anything about that, but yeah, I was still at college at the time. It's a lot smaller than you know, a lot of the US scenes, I think. Depending on what game you play, of course. Probably Street Fighter is a bit bigger, maybe Tekken's a bit bigger than like Blaze Blue or Guilty Gear or something like that. But there is some kind of representation for most of the fighting games, at least. I wouldn't say the community is very big on any of them, to be honest. I mean, just to give you an example, like we just recently lost our venue for our weekly on AE, and that was a really good place to hook up, play offline matches. We don't have that anymore, so that's a loss for us. We don't really have a place to go and play sessions regularly. There's a new place that's starting out, so hopefully that will, you know, bring forth some fruits. But it's like, it's really tough at the moment because we're reliant on online, and everybody knows that online isn't the best way to be playing, so it's not the best format. But yeah, hopefully, you know, we'll get a venue soon, and you know, we'll be able to maintain our level. But yeah, it's tough trying to improve when your community is quite small. It is harder to get better, especially one, when you don't have a venue, so you can't have that regular competition, and 2, when, you know, like you don't have sort of like just a regular training partner, you know, that you can play all the time. I mean, online's okay, but then if your main game is KOF, then you can't play online, you know, and stuff like that. So it does get difficult. Well, what I think people should use is, I mean, use your mediums. You know, your YouTube. You've got forums. You know, use those to kind of expand your knowledge. I mean, as they say, knowledge is power, and it's so true, especially in the fighting community. I think that if you know stuff on a game, it can help your training. Like, people spend lots of time in the lab training new combos, setups, whatever, but the more knowledge you have, the more like the more you can put into those setups, the more fruitful your training will be, just because you know what it matters, you know what it takes to win, and because you've seen what kind of strategies get results. And I think that being able to understand, you know, movies that you see, looking at a match and understanding what's going through a person's mind while they're doing things, that's really important too. But at the end of the day, like whatever game you play, there's always something out there. Now that we have the internet and stuff like that, there's always ways you can get helped. It is really difficult if you don't have actually people to play, you don't have that physical experience, but it doesn't mean you can't get good. I don't believe that you won't ever get good just because you don't have people around you. Like, you do, I mean, you definitely need some form of playing at some stage. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be like you play every day or something, you know, it doesn't have to be that much. But for areas that have really small communities that are reliant on online, I mean, yeah, if your online's decent, that's pretty good. But if it's not, and you've got players that are like maybe a couple of hours drive away or a few hours drive away, get together and try to arrange like a serious casual meetup once every so often. I don't know how often you want to do that. It depends on your schedule, work, whatever, family commitments, I don't know. But try to make it that you can meet up at some kind of regularity. Just because it gives you a reason to train more, and it keeps you in shape. You know, when you do come to final round or you go to a major, you'll be in the right condition to play in that tournament, and you'll have had offline practice so that you can come and be ready. I mean, there's a lot of players here that lost in the tournament, and I'm quite sure they only lost just because they haven't had people to play with to get them to level. It doesn't mean they're not talented, it doesn't mean they don't have potential. It's just because where they live, they don't really have many players, so they came here and then they lost against the characters they never played against before, or they lost because, you know, they were so not used to that environment that they dropped a combo, or there's a lot of things that go on. And these tournaments are 2 out of 3 sets. I mean, it's very quick, you know. Losing in a 2 out of 3 set doesn't even mean you're not the better player as well. It's just you lost that 2 out of 3 set, but it doesn't mean, like, I don't believe that winning a 2 out of 3 set means you're better. And I don't believe losing means you're worse. It's just they got you in that set and that's that, you know. So yeah, it is tough because everything means something. Like in a match like that, every hit means something, you know. But yeah, so I think that maybe even practicing with your friends, when you play with your friends, if you're playing like a round robin amongst yourselves, maybe even practice like it's a tournament. Play 2 out of 3 sets. Don't play first to 5s. Don't play first to 10s. Like actually play 2 out of 3s. You're practicing for a big tournament, you've got to get used to the mentality that you're going to have to adapt to play in the tournament. So do 2 out of 3, or do, you know, whatever gems it takes in Cross Tekken, or whatever rules the tournament's going to be offering. Play like that and see if it helps, you know. The Prodigal Son is from a 1980s movie, which started, it's not from the biblical story actually, a lot of people get it confused, but the nickname The Prodigal Son comes from a 1980s movie, which is a Chinese martial arts film about a guy whose dad pays his son's opponents to lose. So basically, this guy, he thinks he's really good, like he thinks he's the best martial artist in town, right? And anytime he fights someone, he wins. But what he doesn't know is that his dad pays off the opponents to lose to him. And the Prodigal Son as a nickname for me was a way of me having a modest approach to me winning a lot back in the day. So when I used to win a lot of, you know, tournaments and stuff and no one would ever beat me, it was kind of like a little joke that, oh, you know, I'm only winning because, you know, my opponents are being paid off. And that's all it was really. It wasn't anything sort of it wasn't anything arrogant. It wasn't anything where I'm trying to, you know, be better. No, it was actually just a modest take on victory. That's all it was. I just want people to know, like, you know, there are other players around the world that are really good, you know. A lot of times I'll see like stuff on forums where people are like, oh, you know, Europe's free, or this country's free, or this player's free, and I'm like, I don't really agree with that, because I've seen that person play and I see that person's good. And I've seen them play. I don't care where they place in the tournament, because I've seen that they're good just by watching them. So I think that mentality of putting players down, that needs to go. If there's going to be any forward movement, if there's going to be any progression in esports for fighting games, that negativity, that's got to die, because that's killing. That will eventually kind of kill players just by reputation. Like if you're discrediting top level players, you're discrediting your scene as well, you know, and people are not looking at it as the bigger picture. So I think once people start to be a bit more respectful to just how players are viewed in general, like, because you'll get stuff like, oh, this person beat this person 2-1, and it was last round, pixel, 2 seconds on the clock, but then people are like, oh, he got bodied. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It was like a close game, you know. There's no variation of like how people report matches. It's just this happened and that's how it was. And it's like, well, no. So yeah, I think the more respect that you give top players, the more they'll be able to give back to the community.